Hello, hello. How's it going on this Tuesday morning? If you're watching live, and if you're not watching live, well, then good morning, noon, evening, who knows? I hope you can see and hear me all right. Let me know if you cannot. I'm going to go ahead and write a quick little note. You see and hear me. And I'm 99.9% sure you can. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Great to have you along today. So let's pull up our PowerPoint presentation and start with that. So today we are talking about production, outsourcing, and logistics in a global environment. This is really kind of like the nexus of globalization is in production and distribution. This is where all those benefits of comparative advantage, there's the word I was looking for. This is where all the advantages of comparative advantage really come into play. Now, by way of reminder, comparative advantage is when every country, every company does that which they do most efficiently. And efficient means you're investing the least amount of inputs and getting out the maximum amount of return. That is efficient. And so if everybody does what they do most efficiently, then in theory, you should have an end product or service that is high quality, low cost, and easy to put together. So that's the idea. Let's talk then about what it means in terms of practice when it comes to production. Now, just so you know, when we look at production and we look at value and so forth, there's a few things we look at. Okay, there's the actual cost of producing whatever it is that we're producing. So if it costs me $10 to make one of these videos, then it costs me $10 to make a video. Okay, so boom, $10. And if I sell the video for $10, I didn't lose money, I didn't make money. All right. Well, then what we want to do is we want to add a little bit right here to make some profit, right? But of course, you got to do what the market will bear. You cannot raise the price willy-nilly. If the market won't bear it, then the market won't bear it, okay? And then we have, value that the customer perceives, all right? So right in here, this is our value added, the value that we created per unit. This is the value that we created because we did it really efficiently, and the market will bear the added cost. So if the market says, I'm willing to pay $12, for your video, then okay, I can sell it for $12, make $2. But here is where the market says, but you especially, you are really something else. I really like to be associated with your product. And so I'm willing to pay a premium for the right to have that brand, right? So think Apple, think Rolls-Royce, think Harley Davidson. Okay, Apple is a great example though. An Apple phone is no better or worse than a Samsung phone. And yet that Apple logo can charge a premium. All right. So when it comes to actually creating our products and making money doing it, we really have a couple of options. One option is to reduce our per unit cost. Okay. If it cost me $10 to make a video, if I can make it for $9, well, now my per unit cost has reduced, and yet I can still sell it for $12 and make $3 instead of $2. Or another option is for me to really increase that wow factor, right? Can I get the Apple mystique going for me? because that way, even though it still costs me $10, instead of selling it for 12, I can sell it for 13 or 14 because I've got that perceived brand mystique going on. So when we talk about production and global production, it's really in this area of decreasing costs that we're focusing on, that red area. Okay? So let's talk about the relationship between quality and costs. In this context, when we talk about global production, quality means reliability. Okay, when we talk about the quality of something, we mean the reliability, not how refined is it, how exquisite is it. We're talking about how reliable is this product, okay? Implying that the product has no defects, lasts a long time, and performs well. That's quality, all right? The firm that improves its quality control, increasing its reliability, will reduce its costs, therefore, by increasing the value proposition. So let me show you what that looks like. So I've got here, I say I want to improve, I'm improving my reliability, the quality. So it's more reliable. Let's see, just to let you know, the link for this is wrong. Oh, Nicole, thank you. I did not realize that. So that's why we don't have folks joining us yet. Okay, so I am going to really quick. We're going to fix that. We're going to fix that. Thank you, Nicole. So I'm going to copy this. And if you folks don't mind, I'm going to take one moment and we'll send this out to folks. So I'm going to come over here, do this. Hang in there, sports fans. I had them all going so right, and yet then I get one wrong. Ah, I hate that. But luckily, we have Nicole on board to say, hey, dude, what's going on? And you caught the problem. Okay, so I'm going to come over here. I'm going to send this out, and students, all, new link. And then what I'll need to do, there we go. I just sent that out to the team. What I will need to do, Nicole, then is I ought to go double check the others, huh? Of course, we'll do that later on. We'll do that later on. Okay, Daniela found me as well. You know what I think I might do is I think I might go back just a little bit. I think we're going to go back just a little bit. Okay, all right. Sounds like we got folks. Okay, all right. Joan's with us, and we have Danielle and Nicole found us. And Nicole, thank you. Thank you for being persistent and really chasing after that. You're getting a double for that bad boy. Okay. I apologize. So I'll need to go in and check the links. I wonder what link that went to. You know, the link that's in the who's a what's it. All right. Okay, we've got folks. All right, so I'm going to wait just a moment for a couple more folks to come on in since I just sent out that link. And I think I'll send a remind. Let's see who we have in remind. You people are awesome for staying on track with this. Okay, we're going to do announcement. And we've got 4 people in there, so sent a new link. Sent a new link. And of course, you probably just went out to Nutshell Brainery and found it, is my guess. So I appreciate that. All right, we're going to go ahead and start again. So big kudos to all of you for sticking with this, right? I'm going to have to go double check all those links. Yeah, typing in the YouTube channel name. Yeah, smart thinking. Okay, so today what we're talking about is the production process and standards. this is really where the promise of comparative advantage comes into play. When we think about globalization, what we're really often thinking about is global production. Everything made from resources all around the world. We talked about this in like one of our first lectures where we said, hey, you know, a cup of Starbucks coffee, it takes like 19 countries to make that one cup of coffee, right? Well, that's the case with everything that we own. It takes country after country after country to make these things. Well, it's the promise of comparative advantage that makes that possible. So, comparative advantage, for those of you just remembering, is when every country, every company does that which it does most efficiently. All right. Now, by efficient, we mean that for the least amount of input, I can get the most amount of value out of it. Right. That is what is efficient. So, in theory, if every country and every company is doing that which it does most efficiently, and then we bring all those parts together, then at the end of the day, we have a very reliable, high quality, inexpensive part or product that we can all consume. That's the promise of global production. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and think for a moment. Let's talk for a moment about value creation. And I already did a whole bunch of stuff here, so I'm going to erase all the ink on the slide and we'll start over because I had the wrong link for you guys. Here's our highlighter. All right, so, oh, it went on to last Thursday's live. Oh, thank you, Nicole. Okay, that's interesting. So, yeah, I just had the wrong link in there. I really appreciate that. Okay, I'll have to double check that. So, we're making a product, and I'm going to say that I'm making this lens cap, all right? Let's say that I make this lens cap and it costs me $1 to make it. That's my production cost, is $1. And the market is willing to pay me $1.50. Okay, so that's my per unit price is $1.50 because I have $1 here, which you can't see because I'm writing there, right? So I have $1 here and I have 50 cents here. So the market is willing to pay me $1.50. So I'm making 50 cents on each unit. All right. But I want to make more. I want more, right? So there's a few things I can do. One is there's this little thing up here that is kind of perceived value of the customer. So think Apple logo here, right? Apple can charge a premium because they put a little apple on their phone. Now, an Apple phone is no better or worse than a Samsung phone, but that's not the perception. The perception is if it's Apple, then it's somehow or another, associated with a future utopia in which, everybody will be beautiful and gorgeous and young and it's going to be great. And I can't wait to live there. So I'm going to buy Apple products. All right. So in the case of if I had a little apple on this thing, if I can get an Apple logo, I could probably sell it for $2 instead of $1.50. All right. So what does that mean for production? Well, it means if I want to make more money than $1.50 or even $2, right, because I put an apple on this, I have a couple of options. One thing I can do is I can try to reduce my manufacturing costs. Remember, it cost me $1 to manufacture this, and I can sell it for $1.50 or $2. Well, if I want to make more money, I could reduce my manufacturing costs. So instead of taking $1 to make this thing, I'm making it for 90 cents, so I'm making 10 more cents per unit. But another option is I can try to increase the value. I can put an Apple logo on this, and then I could put the signature of some famous photographer, right? It's a signature series lens cap, and it's the signature of a famous photographer. I can put that signature on, and now all of a sudden, hey, Shalise, I'm glad you were able to find us. Mea culpa. Don't worry, we started over, so we're just getting started. So I could put that signature on, and that would increase the value of this product. Now, when it comes to global production, what we're really talking about is this right here. How do we reduce our manufacturing costs? Hey, Alma. Oh, fantastic. So today's lecture, like I said, we're kind of starting over, is, hey, how do we reduce our manufacturing costs? And we're going to reduce our production costs because we're going to do it globally, and we're going to go where there are comparative advantages for our overall product. Okay? So let's talk about that. So in the case of doing this, eraser. Okay. No, I don't want the eraser. I just want to erase everything on the slide, and then I want my highlighter. All right. Let's talk about quality. Now, for the case, in the case of this particular lecture, we need to define quality, okay? In this context, quality means reliability. So think reliability. The product has no defects, it lasts a long time, and it performs well. And what production theory has shown is that companies who improve their quality, their reliability, will reduce costs and reduce the cost of them and increase their value proposition, make more money. So let's talk about how that actually works. So we are improving our reliability for our product. All right. It's now high quality. It doesn't break, and there's no defects. It lasts a long time. It functions well. Well, now, how is this going to make us more money? In a variety of ways. One is it increases our productivity, because if we're not having to deal with defects and go back and fix old things, or, kind of get into the weeds of why is something not working well, then we can actually produce more units in a shorter period of time because we're not dealing with defects, okay? It also reduces the cost of reworking and, more importantly, scrap. And we're going to talk about this in depth today. If the products we're making are really reliable, high quality, and so forth, then we don't have to rework them. We don't have additional scrap. They're highly efficient. We're putting in just what we need, no more than we need to get out what we want as much as we can with no waste. Furthermore, we have a lot lower warranty costs. We don't have to worry about warranty on these things because they work great. Nobody's sending them back, all right? Well, this means that we have much lower manufacturing costs, right? And it also means we have much lower servicing costs, which means hidden in here, it says increased profit. So making really good, high quality, reliable, efficient products actually makes tons more money than making junk. So it's actually in your best advantage to make really good stuff. Okay. So now to do this, manufacturing uses this tool called Six Sigma. Let me know if you've ever heard of the term Six Sigma. It's a statistically based process improvement methodology that aims to reduce defects, boost productivity, eliminate waste, and cut costs. The way we're going to improve our quality and improve our reliability and do all those things that we just talked about to make money is through Six Sigma. Now, I want to show you something, and I'm actually going to kind of change where I am here for a moment. No, I don't want that one. I want this one. Here's just an object lesson for Six Sigma. Six Sigma looks at every single step in a process and says, can I make that step more efficient? Can I make this step more efficient? Because even if you increase efficiency by a minuscule level, when you look at the full scale, you end up making a ton of money. So let me show you what I mean. This is for a slot machine. It costs $1 to play, okay? And it has a 95% payout, which means every dollar you put in, you get back 95 cents. The house keeps 5 cents. That's the way it works, okay? And it has a 15-second cycle time. This is an old machine. You put in your coin and you pull the lever, right? Put in the coin, pull the lever, it goes through its all nonsense, and then it gives you your winnings. It takes 15 seconds to put in the coin, pull the lever. And it goes through this entire process that I'm not going to talk you through. And just trust me that when we look at this entire process for 15-second cycle time, the house eventually will keep $144. But now you're sitting here thinking, well, Lon, slot machines you don't put in a coin and pull a lever anymore. You put in a card that has money on it and you just push a button. Oh, that's right, you do. And so this is for 15-second cycle time. If we change that to a 10-second cycle time, the house all of a sudden keeps $216, which means just by cutting off 5 seconds from a cycle time on each machine, the house makes an extra $72 a day or whatever. That's not bad. I wouldn't mind having an extra $72 per machine per day, right? So this is what Six Sigma does. It looks at every single step in the process and goes, can we make that one more efficient? Can we make that one more efficient? What about this one? Can we just plain take this out and throw it away? Putting in a coin and putting in a coin we can totally take away. Let's put in a card. Pulling the lever, we can make that more efficient by pushing a button. Okay? So this is what manufacturing and production does in general with Six Sigma. You take this to a global level with comparative advantage, and the possibilities are endless. Now, another part of Six Sigma is what we call lean, okay? It's actually sometimes called Six Sigma Lean. They're kind of two different things, but they're put together so often that they're kind of becoming the same. Lean is a systematic method for elimination of waste with a manufacturing system, okay? Now, this is where you're going to do some comments. So listen up. I'm going to explain this picture, and then I want you to tell me where there's waste. I am going to explain this whole process. You tell me where there's waste. So this is a Rube Goldberg machine. This dude has created an automatic napkin applicator. Here's the way it works. He's eating this bowl of soup, and he pulls to drink the soup. He picks up the spoon, puts it to his mouth. That pulls this string, which actuates this spoon. That throws this cracker way up in the air. Polly catches the cracker, eats the cracker. The crumbs, eventually build up here in this bowl. They overflow and fill up this little bucket. That pulls this string, which then turns on the lighter, lights the fuse of this rocket, sends the rocket off. Attached to the rocket is this sickle. That cuts this string to a pendulum, and at the end of the pendulum is a napkin, and the napkin starts going back and forth. That is an automatic napkin applicator. There's a lot of waste to this. I know it sounds like a silly question, but trust me, it's not. Let's take a couple of minutes and you tell me where this machine is wasteful. Okay, let's see what we come up with. Okay, let's come back and take a look at this. So the first thing Alma said, and hang on, let me come back over here. Alma said, and we had Shalise and Danielle, fantastic. She said, E through F, the parrot, the spoon could toss the cracker into the bucket. Okay, Alma's onto something here. One of the things that we need to call out here is that the parrot is an independent process. Okay, we cannot control the parrot. That is a process that is outside of our purview of control. And so oftentimes, no, not oftentimes, all the time, processes are just made up of sub-processes, which are made up of sub-processes. And the more you can control all of these processes and really manage them, the more reliable your process and your product is going to be. However, Polly is not reliable by any stretch of the imagination. And so we can't really control for that. Things can go wrong there. Now, Shalise says, it just seems way more complicated than wiping your own face. Yes, but trust me, mankind knows, and I should say humankind knows no limits to how over-engineered we can make things, how overly complicated. We always have this thing of, add process, add functionality, add things, right? You take your phone, for example. This thing does 10 million more things than you need it to, and yet we need to constantly add stuff to it to add the value. And I maintain that a lot of our processes are overly complicated. But that's for sure. This thing is over-engineered, hugely over-engineered. Daniela says, instead of throwing the cracker, he can use something else to throw in the bucket to eliminate the waste of the crumbs. So there's actually, Daniela, absolutely right. There's a ton of waste in this. So we have waste of crumbs. We have waste of lighter fluid. We especially have waste of the rocket, right? I'm going to show you all the ways that this thing has waste and all the ways that we, in fact, waste in our own manufacturing. So, lean looks at a whole bunch of things when it comes to production. All right. One thing it looks at is overproduction. All right. When we produce more, when we keep producing when we should have stopped. Now, one of the things about that Rube Goldberg machine is that it overproduced. Because when you think about it, it would cut the string and that pendulum would send the napkin back and forth. Well, how many swipes do you need? One or two? And then you don't need any more swipes, but it's still producing. Okay? Well, here's the thing. Overproduction is a real enemy. Not just because you've got this napkin now going back and forth in your face, but think about this. All right, so I'm always looking for object lessons. I need to get more. I'm going to get a new one. I'm going to get a fun one. Okay, got a little frog. I like tree frogs. I think tree frogs are cool. Isn't that cool? Yeah, that's cool. You know it's cool. Okay, so I've got this little tree frog. I make tree frogs. Now, in order to make this, I need to imbue it with money. All right, I need to buy the sand. I need to buy the coloring. I need to get whatever skill it is that makes it. I need to get the energy to fire up the kiln. I need to blow it, and I need to, cool it and polish. I don't know what they do. But all that stuff costs money. So I have shoved money into this like it's a battery holding power. Batteries hold power. This little guy holds money. Okay? Well, now, I can't get the money out until I sell it. Until I sell it, it's just sitting around holding money that I cannot use. Well, when we overproduce, we are taking our money and putting it into things that we cannot then convert back into money. And that causes all kinds of problems. One of them is missed opportunity cost, right? So money gives us opportunity. Well, if I've taken all my money and put it into these products and overproduced, now I don't have that money to put somewhere else and to make something else that I could get. So overproduction is really problematic. Then we have periods of waiting. Waiting, periods of inactivity, obviously for human beings, it's pretty obvious. You're paying me a salary to work, and so if I'm sitting on my hands not producing, then you're not getting any return on that investment. That's a big deal. But it's also a case of equipment. When you buy equipment, you expect to get production out of that equipment. So the more you use something, the more valuable that equipment becomes, the less it costs you, right? So, where's my hoodie? My hoodie's in the other room. I have a hoodie that I have probably worn every day for 20 years, right? Therefore, it was an $80 hoodie, but if you wear it every day for 20 years, that thing is like practically free, right? Because of all the value you got out of it. On the other hand, I had a trailer. I bought a used trailer for $2,500, $2,500. I used it for 2 nights, and then I gave it away. Those 2 nights each cost me, what, $1,350? I didn't get the return on that. So even equipment that is laying around not producing is wasteful. Alma says our packing of over packaging of products like the large boxes Amazon's. Man, great real world example, Alma. Yes, right. Over packaging is very wasteful. Very good. Okay, then we've got transportation. Unnecessary transportation costs, moving things about that would be better for you to kind of have all in one location. We're going to talk about that. Um, Extra processing, like from defects and so forth, very wasteful. Inventory. Now, inventory is really wasteful. Notice inventory is not the same as overproduction. Okay, overproduction is because we have invested too much of our money in too many products that are not likely to sell, right? But that's different than inventory. Inventory is wasteful for a lot of reasons. One is you got to put it somewhere. Where are you going to put it? All right, warehouses. Lean hates the idea of warehouses. Just in time inventory is what they really like. Just in time inventory says, when I need it, it's there. When I don't need it, it's not there. Pretty simple. I have it just in time. The idea of taking valuable space and using it to just hold inventory is horrible. Oh my gosh, Lean hates it. There's another reason why we don't like inventory. A lot of goods depreciate in value over time. So, for example, when I worked at Intel Corporation, Wall Street every quarter would look at our inventory with a microscope and they would spank us every quarter for our inventory. Wall Street did not like it when Intel had a high inventory because they knew that CPOs, the chips that Intel would make, they would depreciate in value week after week after week. A CPU that 1 month you could sell for $100, a month later you could only sell for $80, and a month later you can only sell for $60. So the longer that stuff is sitting in inventory, the less money you're going to get out of it. Wall Street hated that. Motion. If any of you cook, all right, I cook a little bit. There's this concept called mise en place, meaning everything in its place. So you prepare everything so that whatever you need to get to make whatever you're making, it's there in its place. So you don't have to go running around the kitchen and reaching up and getting on stools and all that. That's unnecessary wasted motion. And then finally, defects. Defects are just wasteful for obvious reasons, right? So Six Sigma Lean is all about eliminating all this waste, making the processes as efficient and clean and streamlined as humanly possible so that, and if we do this for every single part of a product all over the world through comparative advantage, then that's why at the end of the day, you can get some pretty darn sophisticated, awesome products for uber cheap. Okay? All right. So let's continue on. Another thing that Lean really likes to look for in Lean production is flexible manufacturing. Flexible manufacturing, it's kind of like the 3D printer but on steroids, on steroids, on steroids. It is a manufacturing process, facility, tool that is not designed to just manufacture one thing. It can be programmed to manufacture any number of things. That way you get the most value out of that particular tool. So a wide range of manufacturing technologies designed to reduce setup time, increase utilization of equipment through better scheduling, and improve quality controls. So this is why, and an example is a flexible machine cell. All right, this is a flexible machine cell. It can make anything in really, really small batches. So if you've ever wondered, how is it that I can go online and order 7 pins that I give to my friends, or 50 mugs, or even just 10 mugs, or even 1 mug with your logo on it, and it still only costs $20? How can they do that? How do they set up their machines to make just one customized pin and yet not have that cost a ton? because these flexible machine cells require very little in the way of setup time, and they can schedule things in batches. So they can support many, many, many clients and very specific customized needs with very little cost. All right, it's fantastic. All right. Now, all of this is talking about quality, right? And everything we're talking about here, I mean, they get psycho into the details. I mean, you can actually take courses and get certified as a Six Sigma green belt and then a Six Sigma black belt. And you can do a master's in logistics and operations. And I mean, and working with these machines and scheduling and logistics. I mean, they get really into the details, but it's worth it for all the reasons that we just talked about to make money. However, you can't just assume that everybody does it really, really well. I mean, how do you know who you want to have manufacture this part to your particular product, right? Well, that's where these standards come into play. Take, for example, ISO 9000. If you've worked for a global company before that does production manufacturing, you may have come across the term ISO 9000. This is a certification process that attests that a company's manufacturing process meets certain standards and quality, right? So it is an international certification that manufacturers really like to get their hands on and really like to earn, because then it makes them available for so much business. ISO 9000 is a set of international standards on quality management and quality assurance developed to help companies effectively document the quality system elements to be implemented to maintain efficient systems, right? Well, here's the thing. In many cases, any company can do it. You have to go through and get the certifications. But if you want to be a subcontractor, or if you want to provide parts or be part of this supply chain, in many cases, you have to get this certification. A lot of international supply chains won't even look at you if you don't have this certification, because this is what makes sure that you can be a value add component to that supply chain that we were talking about at the beginning to add value to a product. Okay? So, all this comes down to, all right, with all that in mind, where are we going to produce? Where are we going to make our stuff? Now, many of you working on your papers, you've already decided what your product is. You've already decided where you're going to produce it. That's fine, but you will want to examine your decision and either justify it or in your recommendation say, no, this isn't going to be the right way to go. Let's look at what we consider when deciding where to produce. First, and you guys already know this, you want to look at economics, politics, cultural conditions to make sure that they are conducive to your business, right? When we look at doing business in other countries, especially in manufacturing, they need to have the infrastructure. They need to have the infrastructure and the culture and the political systems and the protections and legal systems and economic systems in place such that it is an attractive place to do business. And we're going to go into much more depth on that later on in this lecture series. We also want to look at technological factors, right? What available technologies can be brought to bear? Now, remember, it's not just about what can we plug in, right? Sometimes a technology is a manufacturing process. Companies will greedily, jealously guard their manufacturing processes. It's their special sauce, after all. And so sometimes if you want to take advantage of a certain manufacturing process because it has shown itself to be highly efficient at doing what it is you need done, you'll go to that country just to get that process. So when you think of available technologies, don't just think about, do they have the internet? You want to think about sewage, roads, communication, processes, things of that nature. Okay. Then you want to decide, well, now, are you just going to go build everything in one factory, or are you going to spread it across multiple factories? And this comes down to the question of fixed costs. Now, for those of you who don't remember fixed costs, it basically says, hey, there are certain costs that you're not going to be able to reduce through your perfect process. Remember, Six Sigma and Lean is all about reducing waste, increasing efficiency to reduce manufacturing costs. That's great. But there are certain costs that are fixed, that are set. You got to pay rent. No matter how efficient your system is, you got to pay rent. You got to pay taxes. No matter how efficient your system is, you got to pay taxes. You got to pay for power. No matter how efficient your system is, you got to pay power. All right. So fixed costs. You got to spend money on the space. Well, if you have just one space, your fixed costs tend to be rather low, right? If you serve a world market from one place, then your fixed costs are lower and you can get economies of scale working on your side. We'll talk about economies of scale more here in a moment. On the other hand, if you're building out of multiple locations, if you're producing out of multiple countries and locations, then your fixed costs go up. So remember when you watched that video series on making of the t-shirt, how the t-shirts were made in two different areas, Costa Rica and Bangladesh. That means increased fixed cost. Well, why would they do that? Well, if you operate locally out of multiple locations to be more responsive to local markets, okay, then you're also less dependent on one market. So, for example, responsive to local markets. Let's say that we are manufacturing a product that has to be tweaked a little bit, customized a little bit for each individual market. Well, we want to produce them close to that market. Likewise, let's say that if we put all our eggs in one basket and that basket falls apart, we're out of business. But if we are able to spread our manufacturing across several areas, then we can spread our risk. So just kind of there are pros and cons. Now, let's talk about economies of scale and minimum efficient scale. Let's read the definition, but then I'll give you an example. The point at which economies of scale are exhausted and the unit price cannot be pushed any lower. Okay, let's first define economies of scale. There are some things that when you buy or invest in and so forth, that you can take on a ton of customers and you don't need to keep buying new things. So let's say a GPS, okay? This phone has a GPS in it. Well, GPS is controlled by a bunch of satellites. Well, they could have 1 million new customers tomorrow for GPS, and they will not have to launch a single new satellite. All right? So those satellites become more and more efficient the more the scale goes up. I'll give you another example. Let's say Netflix. Okay, Netflix over the last 9 months because of COVID, their subscribers have gone sky high. They haven't needed to hire a ton of new people. They haven't had to get a whole bunch of new servers. They had enough capacity that they could just take on those customers, and that's money. They don't have to invest in new satellites. They don't have to invest in new this, that, and the other for each new customer that comes on. They have the capacity and they'll just take your money. Well, this works great until you meet minimum efficient scale. There is a certain point at which all your costs and so forth, are constant, but you're getting more and more revenue, so you're making money where it really can't handle anymore. So in the case of Netflix, eventually they'll have to buy a whole new server farm. And that's going to be a huge cost, in which case now the cost per unit is going to go up all over again, and they'll have to bring it back down through more efficiencies of scale. So this is one of the things that we look at in manufacturing. If you have one location, you can have efficiencies of scale until that location becomes overcrowded. And then you have to do a whole new factory, and then your costs go back up. Okay. Hey, by the way, who was it that's doing business in Singapore? I forgot who it was, but I added this slide for you. So whoever it is who's doing the one in Singapore, oh gosh, Alma. Okay, Alma. I put this in there for you. Here's some reasons why people love to do business in Singapore in terms of manufacturing and so forth. First, English is widely spoken there. They have a highly educated workforce. Their government is committed to growth. Oh my holy heck, is their government committed to growth. They have a fantastic infrastructure. I've done a lot of work in Singapore, and I love their infrastructure. And very favorable terms from the Singapore government in terms of taxes, tariffs, and subsidies. So yeah, when I was doing some research on this and I saw this, HP, Hewlett Packard, they just built some brand new facilities in Singapore, as did a whole bunch of other tech companies. I mean, Singapore is huge for tech companies. Why? Because of all these factors. So there's some stuff for you to consider. Okay. Now, when it comes to production, there's the thing that you're producing. You're welcome, Alma. There's the thing that you're producing, and then all the parts and so on and so forth. At some point, you have to ask, should I make it myself, or should I hire somebody else to produce it? Okay, do we make it in-house, or do we outsource it, right? So, for example, Shalise, you're going to be marketing your book in South Africa. You're not producing those books yourself. You don't have a printing press. You don't have binding. You don't have all that sort of stuff. You have made the decision to outsource that. But when it comes to the production of your videos and your podcasts, you have made the decision to do that internally, all right? Because it's easier to invest in those things than, say, a printing press and all that. So let's look at the pros and cons of in-source versus outsource. Let's talk about in-house. So Shalisa's podcasts, her videos, things she does internally. Well, you need to, invest in specialized equipment, and you can do that easily yourself, right? In some cases, not in the case of a podcast or a YouTube video, you've been experimenting with outsourcing as well. You should experiment with outsourcing. As a matter of fact, this might show you that outsourcing is a good call to make. Sometimes when we make a product, we have a special sauce. It's secret. KFC's or Coke's secret formula. And so we want to keep this secret manufacturing process secret. Well, you're not going to outsource if you have secrets that you want to maintain. Let's say that you have really big plans to take this manufacturing process and go to the next level. in which case you really want to develop and nurture and curate and grow this manufacturing process. However, if manufacturing isn't your wheelhouse, why would you do it internally? So in the case of your books, you're not going to invest in the printing press and the binding and all that sort of stuff because you don't have ambitions of being a printer, right? You have ambitions of being a writer and self-help advocate and work in charities and social causes. So why would you invest in all that? Also, in-house, you can schedule, you can control the schedule really, really, really well. Whereas if you're going out, if you're outsourcing, you have to get on other people's schedule. And so it's like, hey, I need, 200 books, printed. They'll say, okay, we can fit that in 3 weeks. And you're like, but I need them now. And it's like, So the other day, it was a couple years ago, I had printed for me 2,000 books. And Amazon said, okay, we can do 70 now, 30 in 2 months, and then another 20 in a week after that. And so it took me a long time to get 200 books, but that's because I outsourced it, right? If you do it internally, you don't have to worry about that. But let's look at outsourcing, all right? Why do people outsource? Well, strategic flexibility. As we said earlier, and Shalice said, yeah, correct. If your ambitions are to go this direction, you don't want to invest any time or money into this direction. So Shalice would have no interest in investing in becoming a professional printer because she has limited time, limited energy, limited resources. She wants to focus it all toward her purpose and mission. And so that is a strategic direction. Furthermore, if you invest in that printing press and you say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and be a printer, and then the market falls out of the printing, market, well, then now you're screwed because you've put all your eggs into that basket. You're no longer flexible. But if you outsource things, your flexibility, it's a lot easier to just call your outsourcer and say, hey, no more orders, click, than it is to look at, say in my case, a whole room that I've converted into a studio. And now it's kind of like, okay, I don't have strategic flexibility anymore. I now know I'm going to be doing a studio. Okay, lower costs. Yeah, it costs a lot of money to, invest in all that, money that you'd rather be putting somewhere else, and then offset. Offset basically means that, it offsets risk, right? If you put all your money into one area and it doesn't work out, you're at high risk. But if you hire an outsourcer, you're offsetting your risk there. Okay? Now, I'm just going to fly through this real quick. All of this comes down to, one thing that we talk about is regional economic integration. This is things like what was once NAFTA. I forget what NAFTA is now called. It's not nearly as clicky. It's also the European Union, the EU. What a lot of countries will do is they will create these zones and these agreements by which they can easily produce together and help their supply chains run smoothly with low trade barriers. That's the grand secret, low trade barriers, all right? Here's a list. It's not that big. Here's a list of all the countries that the U.S. has free trade agreements with. It's not that big. I really wish it was more. But it's something you might want to look at if you're curious. By the way, Alma, check it out. Singapore, we have free trade agreements with Singapore. So not a bad thing to think about. And why do we do it? Well, we don't want to go to war. I'm just going to run through that real quick. There are pros and cons to economic integration. I think we kind of talked about these at the beginning. I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted. My puppy woke up. And so now he's getting into stuff, right? Bosco. Here, I'm going to pick him up. He's going to join me for just a moment. Come here, Bosco. Come here. Yeah, you're going to join me for just a moment. Um, let's see. Uh, Economic integration helps lower trade barriers. I know, Alma, right? So cute. Helps lower trade barriers and encourages free market economies, which helps everyone. On the other hand, sometimes we might do business with somebody who is not as efficient as someone else, but because they are in the free trade zone, we pay deference to them. We'll go their way. So, for example, let's say that Mexico, we have an awesome free trade agreement with Mexico. We don't have one with, let's just make up a country, Guam, right? Well, Guam might have a really, really awesome, great manufacturing process that's highly efficient, that would be better for us to use. But because they're not in the free trade zone, it's just kind of a bother. So we're going to go with Mexico, which is not as efficient in this hypothetical, but they're in the free trade zone, so it's easier for us, right? So that's one thing that they can kind of work against you for. All right, sorry for the quick end because the puppy woke up, but there you go. Fantastic. I apologize for having the wrong link. I'm going to go in and fix that so that this video will be waiting there for the future. Otherwise, work this into your papers. You know the whole routine. We'll talk more about that on Thursday. Thursday, because on Thursday we're going to talk papers again in our Zoom meeting. Okay? So, thank you and have a fantastic day.